Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of Wire2Wire Sports Podcast. I'm the NFL genius, Gene Walzek, and in the upper left corner, we got Kent State's own, Cleveland's own, College Cottrell.
Gentlemen, another week. We finally got the first week of madness out of the way. You know, everything's kind of calmed back down. You know, kids are back on campus, but I'm ready to get right back to it tomorrow. Ready to get to it.
Bro, I'm fired up. Like, I'll tell you right now, last Thursday, Friday, I mean, listen, I'll say this, and we'll talk about it a little bit, the death of the mid-major. Hopefully it's not the death. Hopefully they can be revived. But it was definitely not – I'll put it to you this way. It made for a lackluster Thursday, Friday. It'll make for a better this Thursday, Friday. Like, you don't have to worry about Florida, Gulf Coast, or Fairfield sneaking into the Sweet 16 and getting the shit kicked out of them by Duke. You're seeing major programs, Auburn, Michigan, Duke. Like, you're seeing them all, right? They're there. Upper right corner. What? I don't know how this guy just continues to make up nicknames. He was sick as hell, Shally, Uncle Shally, Scholastic Shally. He's now Surgical Shally. I don't know where the hell this comes from, but I call him Doc.
Saw the performance on the mound last night. You understand?
Absolutely. That was it. That was Doc. That's Doc performance on the mound. But Mr. William Shallcross, how are you today?
Wonderful, bro. 1-0 for the Wire2Wire Sports softball team. Start the season. Looked very at home last night. No first game jitters or lack of play. So it was a good start off on the right foot.
Bro, what was that? I went into that. If you guys don't know, we're talking about our softball league that we're in, but I went into that game being like, we could lose this game. Like, they were like a tournament team last year. They were adding players. Like, I don't know who's going to show up. I don't know how we're going to play. It's been like 4 or 5 months. I walked up to Billy Walker. I'm like, Billy, have you played since like the last time we played? He goes, no. Goes up there and just smacks a triple over the right fielder's head. I'm like, the offseason program is working out well for Billy Walker. The guy ages like fine wine. But the point is, we looked a lot better than I expected us to.
Yep.
We got a ton to get into tonight. An absolute ton. That's Shally, the man of few words right there. I lay him up. He doesn't knock him down. It's fine. The guy hit 8 pins. He didn't even knock the last 2 down.
I don't like to brag.
That's fair. Well, you named yourself Surgical Shally. That's kind of a double. That's a little twist right there. But we have a ton to get into. College basketball last weekend. I'll say this. I think it was the first Saturday, Sunday that was better than Thursday, Friday in the last 10 years. Do you guys agree, disagree, your thoughts? Thursday, Friday were very vanilla. Like, I felt like I was what's the guy's name? I'm vanilla. That guy. I felt like it was the most vanilla Thursday, Friday that we've had in college basketball in 10 years.
I don't want to say I don't want to call it vanilla. I just don't think it was as crazy as it's been the last couple of years. And, I know you already brought it up, so I know we're going to get into it. But, again, I think the consensus was there was going to be a lot of chalk in this tournament this year because there were so many good big teams this year. It wasn't the typical year where there was 2 or 3 good teams per conference, and then you had all the mid-majors in there that had a shot. There were so many powerhouse programs we've talked about on the show, 7, 8, 10, 12 teams we all thought could possibly win the national championship, and most of them are still alive. I'll never call Thursday and Friday vanilla because just the mystique and the excitement of it starting and getting there is just it's one of the the weekends I look forward to the most every year. Yeah. But it definitely didn't have. We didn't have the crazy 15-2 upset. Like, there wasn't a lot of upsets. The first 2 days kind of went pretty much as planned.
Cottrell?
Yeah, so I mean, I agree that it wasn't necessarily anything crazy that happened there. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, we kind of got some of the upsets. I mean, again, nothing crazy, but McNeese, moved on. You had Drake as an 11 seed move on. So, I mean, we got some of the madness. I think I'm with you, though, in the sense of even in the games that went how I thought they were going to go, we didn't have that walk-off shot. We didn't have that one moment you can go back and look at and be like, damn, like I remember I was sitting at, so-and-so spot when this happened, like this shot went off. Like I think back to a couple years ago, the Furman, Virginia game. Like I know that was just a 13-4 matchup, but you get the crazy steal. They pull off the 3 afterwards and they send that Virginia team home. Like you're used to getting something like that every single March Madness, and that didn't happen.
First of all, I had Drake winning over Mizzou. I also had McNeese. So I see you already in the chat talking about your BYU pick. You picked 13 upsets. One of them, you said BYU destroys VCU. That's fine. Told you get in the bracket, bro. You have 0 bragging points to put on the screen if you don't have a bracket to show. Where are you at? We have
also had Drake.
Yeah, exactly. But we got a ton to get into as far as the games as a whole. I think it was vanilla. I think Thursday and Friday were, I don't want to say boring. They weren't boring, but they were just predictable. And it felt like the brackets, like those big upsets that you've seen in all these other tournaments. No 13s, no 14s, no 15s, no 16s. They went 0-16. The 13 through 16 seeds went 0-16 on Thursday, Friday. And now there's not one. And the lowest seed remaining is a John Calipari-led Arkansas team. That's a 10. Like, they're not a 10. I mean, they're a 10 for the tournament. But any team that's Arkansas that has John Calipari as their coach, cool. I'm fine with them being the lowest seeded team remaining. You have games on top of games this Thursday and Friday, and we're going to get into them. But I want to talk about Saturday, Sunday, and I want to talk about, listen, the Queen from the Maryland Crab 5 with the walk-off. That was an incredible game. Was that game or the Florida versus UConn game? Maryland, Colorado State, Florida, UConn. What was your game of the opening weekend?
For me, I would have to go with the Florida UConn game. I know you had to walk off in the Colorado State and Maryland game, but I think for me, like the biggest thing is that although UConn had been a team where they were struggling pretty much all year, up and down, we didn't know how they were going to play. Dan Hurley basically said, I'm giving up on these guys. They've given up on me. I'm ready for them to hit the portal and basically start over again next year. I still knew that they were going to play hard because I'm like, Dan Hurley hates to lose. If you know anything about Dan Hurley, he is a, Gene, you like to call him a sore loser. I mean, I agree. I think that is what he is. But I mean, he has such a passion for winning. I knew he was going to coach his guys up to have them in a position to compete. They also have talent on that team. Like Liam McNeely is going to be a lottery pick this upcoming year. So like they have talent too. So, but just the way that they were able to not just stick with Florida, but like in a sense, it felt like for the first 25 minutes of that game, they were kind of dominating a bit. Like they were giving Florida everything that they could handle, and then some. But then that man that we talked about last week, Walter Clayton Jr., stepped up to the plate. He hit tough shot after tough shot after tough shot, and it was ultimately just too much for him. So it felt like a game where, like, is this going to be the first 1 seed to go down? Like, especially after coming off of the first round, the round of 64, where you didn't have that big upset. Florida being the first 1 seed truly on the ropes. For me, that had just a little bit more excitement than the Colorado State Maryland game.
Okay. Shai, where were you at? What was your favorite game this weekend?
I wouldn't disagree with that. I think there was a lot of really good games. I really do.
BYU, Wisconsin, Gonzaga, Houston. They were all good games.
Arkansas St. John's was good too.
I mean, that came down. I mean, kind of how that game transpired down the stretches. I mean, I don't know, that's something we'll get into or not, but
we are.
That was intriguing in its own right. The Texas A&M Michigan game was very good. But I mean, the Florida UConn game was really intriguing to me for a lot of the reasons Cottrell said. It was kind of the first time that I felt like in a month or a half that like UConn kind of showed up with their swagger and kind of showed up with like, you know what, like we are the 2-time defending champs. Like we got to go out here and kind of ball, and gave Florida everything they wanted. And that was, the Hurley situation is its own thing. But, when you're used to winning that much, I think it kind of makes character flaws like that seem a little bit bigger than they are. But that being said, again, to Gonzaga, Houston, I thought it was a good game. I never really got the feeling that Houston was going to lose that game. And that might just be me. But to Cottrell's point, I think UConn kind of really digging in and giving Florida a legit scare. And obviously for me, I haven't won in my bracket. So I was like, this might be the end all be all for me at the first weekend, which would be par for the course. But, I thought there was a lot of really good games. To Gene's opening point, we just didn't have, we didn't have the buzzer beaters. We didn't have the walk-offs. Like we had one, but we just didn't have a lot of them. We still had a lot of really, really good basketball games.
It was an underrated game that we didn't talk about or hardly at all during the week on Coffee and Sports or anywhere. It was a very good game. It was Oregon, Arizona. And I hope Alex isn't in the chat. I'm not bringing this up to pour any salt on the Oregon wound. But that was a really good basketball game. Oregon jumped all over Arizona, and then Arizona looked like they were going to pull away in that game, and Oregon would not go away in that basketball game. It had 170 combined points. They were going back and forth. It was a great basketball game, but it's not the lead stories. There's a couple lead stories, and we could start with Hurley. We could start with St. John's. We could start with however you want, but the Pitino thing, benching RJ Lewis, is where my mind goes and what I think is one of the biggest stories of the opening weekend. Mm-hmm. When I look at St. John's, and listen, I predicted St. John's to lose early. I told you, I don't think that their shooting's good enough. I don't think they're good enough. I obviously said that they look good in the Big East tournament, but I said they were going to be a team that lost early. I didn't think they would lose that early. I thought they'd lose in the Sweet 16. They lost in the round of 32. The problem I have with St. John's is really simple. I don't know what transpired between Rick Pitino and RJ Lewis, but it felt like there's got to be a story more that I have to hear because they benched him after taking a really bad shot in which he got fouled on, and he made both free throws. He's their best player. He's the Big East player of the year, and you sat him on the bench. That, to me, felt like you had the under 4 timeout. You pull him over. You sit him down dude, you take another shot like that, I'm sitting your ass on the bench for good. I'm done with this. He was 3 for 15 on the night. He was having a really tough night. But the guy is instant offense. He's like oatmeal. You throw him in the microwave, and you watch the one game in the Big East tournament. He had 2 points versus Creighton in the first half. He had 27 points in the second half. He just needs a little spark. And being able to hit both those free throws, the free throw line, getting able to get to the line, could have been that spark that woke them up. Are you on Pitino's side? Do you need to hear more? Are you on the fence, Shally? I'm kidding. But what's your thought process on him benching the Big East player of the year for the last 4 minutes of the game and getting eliminated?
I mean, if you read between the lines and if you watch the press conference afterwards, he pretty much said why without saying why. This came up last night at the field, but 15 years ago, Pitino probably just would have just absolutely just threw him under the bus and dog walked him in front of the media. He didn't this time, but the guy, one of the reporters that followed St. John's all year, asked the question. Rick pretty much said, that's what we decided to go with. But you watch the game, you know what was going on. You know our sets, you know why. He's like, I'm just not going to get into it. And that's what he said. He said he was out there, playing for himself. Apparently he came off and did his own thing in a couple plays, and Pitino just was like, I'm not going out that way, and sat him. And you get an old school coach like Rick Pitino that's stubborn, and stuff like that happens. Am I going out, being a 2 seed and going out in the second round with my best player on the bench for the last 4 minutes? Probably not. I don't know if I'm dying on that hill. But that being said, apparently it wasn't the first time this year. And Pitino just said he he wasn't going to sit there and watch it, which is like I said, you pretty much read between the lines, and that's what he said, and that's what he decided to do.
Control, what are your thoughts on RJ Lewis sitting on the bench the final 4 minutes?
No way that can happen for me. I understand the bad shot selection. I understand, if he's not moving the rock how you want him to, especially in that kind of game. The reality situation is nobody on St. John's was hitting shots at that point in the game. You're down. You need points. I'd much rather lose with my best player in the game and, ultimately it doesn't work out than me sitting the entire offseason and thinking, what if? I mean, you have players on that team, and, if I'm on a team and I have our best players not in the game, I'm like, all right, so you're basically giving up on the game. Like, that's like, there's some people that's going to have that mindset. And John, you could say that's why I'm not a coach. Ultimately, St. John's lost the game. So you put the guy on the bench, and you see Arkansas goes and wins by what was the end total? Double digit.
9.
Yeah, so it was a 9-point win. So clearly that wasn't the right decision either. You had them in the game, and it was a much closer game. So for me, I ultimately have to go down with my best players in the game. I mean, because like you said, Gene, free throws could have ultimately got him in a rhythm there. That could have got him going. But even if it's not, again, you need threes. There was a situation, they were down 6 at a point. They know they needed a 3. You could play the foul game. You're bringing in a guy off the bench. They're just chucking up bad threes anyway. If we're going to chuck up bad threes, why not chuck it up with my best player? That's ultimately where I stand with it. So to not bring him back in, and then even the press conference, I wasn't a big fan of the press conference. I like that he didn't throw his player under the bus, but to kind of talk down on the reporter and say he played 30 minutes, like that's a lot. Like, yeah. I mean, let's be honest here. We all saw that he didn't play in the back half of the game when the game mattered the most. Was it because you didn't like his shot selection? Was it because you thought that he was slowing down the offense? Or was it simply because you didn't like his attitude? Like, it was a very valid question there. And so, I mean, 100%. I understand why you left it ambiguous there because you didn't want to throw the player under the bus, but to just act like it was just some crazy question and, we all would have done the exact same thing in that situation was very different from how I expected Rick Pitino to handle the situation.
He said, you know what you're doing. You're leading for a question. I'm going to make something very clear when I say this. I don't know the full story, so I cannot trash Pitino. Pitino probably could have told him 3 or 4 times, stop taking those shots or I'm going to pull you from the game. And that might have been the final straw for him. But I don't know. They were down 2 points when they removed him, 66-64, 4 minutes and 56 seconds left in the game. They lost by 9. They were down 66-64. The rest of the game, they lost 11-2. They scored 2 points. So it was the wrong decision. Whether or not it was justified why he made the wrong decision, it was the wrong decision. They scored 2 total points after that.
I would just lean this way in saying that a guy that has had that much success and that much experience, I would find it hard to believe that a conversation didn't previously happen in that game.
I agree with you.
Out of nowhere, he was like, you know what? You're done. Sit down. I find that very hard to believe that happened. Could it be true? Absolutely. I'm almost positive conversations probably happened during the course of that game. And if he still did what he did, then again, I mean, he's that old school hard ass type of coach, and that it's
which is fine.
I wouldn't have done it again, but it's the same thing. That is who he is, and that is what he does, and it's I mean, we could both say that, but at the same time, we're here, and he's a multiple national champion winner and doing what he's doing. So, I think my point is that portion of it is fine, but the fact that we still don't know is the bigger issue. Like him telling the reporter, "You know what you're doing." Yeah. No, I don't. I don't know. Like, am I implying that he was just taking bad shots? Am I implying that you told him to stop and he just didn't do it? I don't know.
Okay,
but in his defense, though, but him brushing it off and kind of being that way, it was, I'm not going to get stuck on this question because if I start answering questions that you asked, then everybody else's questions are going to change to asking specific questions about the interactions. And to his credit, I don't think he wanted to go out there and throw him under the bus. I don't, and he did everything in his power not to. So
I don't disagree with either one of your points. I think what Pitino did was admirable, and especially if I don't know what the situation is, I just know, and I agree with you, I would not have sat my best player on the bench for the final 4 minutes of the game. That's we got to move. We got a ton of games to go over and a ton of games to recap. I want to talk about Maryland and Colorado before I get into Dan Hurley. That game was incredible. Colorado State was, in my opinion, the best mid-major team that was in the tournament. They were the best, not mid-major, but like they were the best under the radar team that was in this tournament. Colorado State played their ass off. I think they're a really good basketball team. And if I'm being completely honest with you, forget the last play of the game because I don't think that was a travel. And I think anybody that's making that claim, you can make that claim in so many plays in basketball. I think that play is so huge, but I don't think it was a travel. I'm going to stay there. But I felt like that game was called one-sided for Maryland, and I'm a Crab 5 fan. You guys know how much I've talked about the Crab 5. I felt like they've gotten the benefit of the doubt on a lot of calls in that basketball game. With that being said, Derek Queen, the mic'd up little version where you heard him, get me the effing ball. Oh, man. And then walk out there and hit that game-winning. Hit that game winner. I just give the kid credit. I think he's a freshman, right?
Yeah, he's a freshman. Yep.
It is.
Give me the ball, and freshman from Baltimore said, "Give me the ball," and made that game winner, that buzzer beater. Let's give credit. We're not gonna talk. See, this is what I mean. John Suggs in the chat. Go watch. Kind of slow motion,
bro.
I'm not going to lie to you. At that point, if you have to watch things in turtle motion, though, that's not what should decide basketball games. This is basketball. I mean, Gene Steratore afterwards on CBS was talking about it. I mean, part of the game is you get to gather. I get it. A gather is, interpreted differently depending on who's out there. Like, I understand if you want to say that we have to figure that out, then I'm 100% with you. But a play that close, 2 steps. I mean, if you wanted that to be called a travel in that moment, then I feel like you're not a true fan of the game. And ultimately, that's not what the game is supposed to be about.
It's like one of those things at the and we talk about it all the time in every sport. The last 10, 15 seconds of a game, it's got to be something egregious. At that point, like you don't want the refs in any sport dictating what happens in the outcome of a game like that in the closing moments. Like, because a lot of people are like, all right, well, if it's calling the travel and like you called the foul too because he bumped him, and I'll disagree with that. Again, if you're both going up to try to block a shot, you got to hit the guy in the face or something like in that situation for the refs to call it. If you give him a little bit of body and it's not egregious, they're not going to call it, and they shouldn't. In the moment,
it's funny because you got body on that play. Like you could have easily called a foul on that play, which
that's
is
what I'm saying. And I don't want that called either. Like let them both go up, and whatever happens. And I agree with Cottrell. I mean, me and Gene talked about this a little bit last night too. Like if you got to slow it down that much to make sure in the blink of an eye when it's happening, and these kids are moving 18 to 20 miles an hour, and big ass dudes that are quick as hell. You have to be 100,000,000% sure if you're a ref, if you're going to call and blow that whistle. And if you're not, let them play.
I don't know if you remember this call as much as I do, but one of the worst calls I've ever seen in tournament history was against Villanova. And do you know the call I'm talking about? It was the Allen Ray travel versus North Carolina that happened.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was so bad, and we all thought it was a foul, like an N1, like Villanova was about to tie the game and have a chance to go up one, and they called a travel on Allen Ray. That whole Villanova team that didn't get to go, the Randy Foy, Allen Ray, Mike Nardi group, that's one of the worst calls ever. And we talk about that, and we look at this play with Derek Queen. I don't think this was even close to being what people are making it as. But I don't know. That's my take on it. That's my opinion on it. I think you can slow down. And if you look at the next level, the NBA, what they do as far as traveling with the basketball that doesn't get called, this was not even close. That happens in the NBA 35 times a night.
There's no traveling in the NBA anymore. You literally have to take the ball in your hand almost like a football and run with it for half the court to get called for traveling in the NBA. Like it has to be like almost comically bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you see guys.
They also have different rules than NCAA.
They do, but my point is, you can watch a game every night and see a guy pick up his dribble almost at the top of the key and do a layup and be like,
the Kawhi Leonard shot that he hit over Joel Embiid, the triple doink that went in. He took 5-6 steps before he bounced the basketball.
Yeah,
like it's so bad. All right, Dan Hurley. I don't know if this is an opinion of yours or mine or whoever's it is, but I'll say this. I know what that feels like. I am 100% a sour grapes, sore loser that says things that I shouldn't say. I watched that UConn Florida team game. I watched that game. I watched it bell to bell. And when I heard Dan Hurley complaining about the officials, I hope they don't F you like they F us, Baylor. Like when he said that in the tunnel, I thought to myself, I'm like, was that game called poorly? I didn't think that Florida was getting the benefit of the doubt on calls. Like I can understand a ticky-tack call here or a ticky-tack call there. If I'm UConn, I'm walking away from that basketball game saying we didn't defensively rebound the basketball. The two most important plays in that basketball game were offensive rebounds by Florida that led to 5 points from Walter Clayton Jr. One of them was a missed dunk where he got fouled on the dunk, and he made both free throws, and the other one was the three that basically was the dagger. That's where you lost the basketball game, not foul calls. I think that Dan Hurley has been drinking a little bit too much of his own Kool-Aid. This is not the first time or the second time or the third time he's been caught on camera saying some out-of-pocket stuff. Was it sour grapes, or do you understand where he's coming from? And let me be the first to say it. It was sour grapes, and I understand it because I do it.
I think for me, it's I really think for me, it's both of what you said there. At the end of the day, look, UConn had the opportunity to take advantage, and Walter Clayton Jr. put him to bed. There wasn't, I mean, you could talk about loose ball stuff. You could talk about, ticky-tack foul calls and stuff like that put Florida at the line. Florida wasn't even making all their free throws either anyway. So it wasn't even like Florida was taking advantage of, getting to the line anyway. But for me, I would say Dan Hurley is one of those guys where I like Dan Hurley. Like I like the way he coaches. I like that he has that attitude. I do think he crosses the line at points, but I also am of the mindset though that for coaches, for players, I love it when they are unapologetically themselves. When it's not throwing down their players. And I get it. Dan took some shots at some players, and I don't know if that was to ultimately motivate them before the tournament, because we see it. It kind of worked. I mean, you get through the first round matchup and then you give Florida everything that they could possibly handle. So I don't know if that was the intention behind it, but I'm a fan of what Dan Hurley does, the way he does it. I'm just thinking back to the Mali Invitational, him saying, I'm the best coach out there, basically. Yeah. And going off on his tangent there. So I'm cool with what he does, but I do think it's sour grapes. And that's not why UConn lost that game. They lost the game because at the end of the day, when it came down to it in the clutch time, Florida was just better. And I do think at a point as well, if you watched his interview with who was it? I think it was with Tracy after the game. He was a lot different sounding than when he thought that the cameras weren't really rolling and, he was talking to Baylor. So I think he tried to say the right thing, but I also think that he is in certain spaces just unapologetically himself.
I would agree with pretty much everything both of you said, to be honest. I think that was kind of like the last, straw to break the camel's back, like Cottrell said, a culmination of a really long, frustrating year coming off back-to-back championships. Him turning down the Lakers job, I think it was just a lot of, just anger, like whatever he had left in the tank, just kind of spewing it out there. I agree with Cottrell. That's who he is, though. I mean, at the same time, like, we can't love him for it when he's winning and kind of talking trash and standing up for his team, and then when he loses, be like, don't be yourself. Does he cross a line? Yeah, he crosses lines. I mean, and he got suspended for it. But at the same time, like, he is who he is, and he comes from a long line. His dad was that way. We all know about his brother. Was kind of a, I don't want to say a hothead, but a very a player that thrived on playing, on emotion at Duke. So, it's who he is. It's who he is. That's how he's, that's genetically how he's wired, and he's on all the time. And there's a lot of people that, again, kind of like, circling back to Pitino, old school coaching is in a weird way, kind of circle back around and kind of becoming a thing again. So, I don't want to hear refs per se. I never like that excuse, even though we've all done it. Like Gene said, he's done it. I've done it. But at the same time,
how many times I had to message people like after the game, like an hour after the game, and apologize for the way I acted at the end of the game when I'm losing. I'm like, I'm in the line after losing, shaking hands, being like, "That's all right. We beat him in the championship last season." I'm like, this is uncalled for. Like, I don't need to say that dumb shit, but like, it gets over me, man. Like, I know I'm a sore loser. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, everybody has that streak in them to some degree. But at the same time, again, I think it was, I think culmination is a great word, and Cottrell used it. I think that was just the last of everything that he had to get out of a really frustrating year coming off 2 championships. And, I think we would all have to agree, would say an underachieving team this year. I don't think anybody thought coming into this year necessarily they're going to win another one, but not to really be a factor all year. And I think, and again, I think it was a long year with him and his kids. I mean, you saw how he talked about it before the tournament even started about, he's like, half these kids are going to be gone in 4 days. You know what I mean? So,
that's the game I'm talking about, by the way, which is really funny.
But at the same time, I'd rather him, like Cottrell said, I'd rather always him be that way and go a little bit over the line than be fake. So,
all right, well, let's get into the next round, gentlemen. We got the Sweet 16. We're going to talk about it. Before we get into the next round, I want to recap where we're at in the bracket, how guys are doing, where you guys are at in the wire-to-wire bracket. Can you throw that up there for us, Cottrell? Okay. I need to make my screen bigger because my eyes are not that good. Looks like I got it. I got to see it now. I've made it bigger. Bob Tierney. God probably doesn't watch a lot of basketball. Let me tag Bob Tierney. I don't know if Bob Tierney knows he's leading right now. Bob Tierney in the lead. What?
99.1%.
I mean, absolutely killing it right now. Absolutely knocking it out the ballpark. Great job, Bob Tierney. Now, Brett Anchor, listen, you're not going to get any love from me, Brett. You had St. John's win it all. You're eliminated. I don't care where you're at right now in the bracket. You had a good 2 rounds, but your national champion's gone. You lost. You get no love. Cody Judge, Angelo Seach. But we look at all those guys at the top. They all have Duke winning. Something you got to look at is the guy that has Houston winning, Jeremy Thomas. The guy that has Auburn winning, Mark Vines. Guy that has Florida winning, Nicholas Reyes, Greg Guarino. Anybody's bracket. And I got to give Eric Rosenblum his credit. He's right there with Auburn winning. He just needs one thing to bounce his way to pass Mark Vines. And Eric Rosenblum's right back in this. Dave Hernandez, right back in this. But you notice there's none of us up there. So
I'm bringing up the rear this year. At this point, I'm just banking on Florida winning.
I'm on the first page at least.
Yeah, I'm not on the first page.
Oh,
also, I'll post it on the page. I will post it on the page. Ashley Ben has a bracket. I posted, we talked about it Monday. She has a bracket. It was put in, 100% put in, and it has a 0 bracket for. I have screenshots of the entire bracket and the Venmo receipt. It will be posted on the page. She has Alabama winning, so she's probably not going to win anyway, but I want to make that clear because she has 500 points right now. So if she's 500 points and Alabama winning, if Alabama wins, she's going to win. That's just basically where we're at. Yeah. So she's got a 1 in Alabama shot. If she's become a Mark Sears fan today, but she's got a shot and she's on this list too. So I want to make it clear on the show why anyone's listening, she is still involved also. And by the way, the screenshots of her bracket will be posted on the Wire2Wire page. So if there's any questions, issues, problems, you know where to find me. Let's talk about this week's games. Let's talk about our Sweet 16. And it opens up with a banger. It happens in New Jersey. It's going to be a game where it's happening in Newark, New Jersey, in the Prudential Center. It's going to be a great basketball game. You might want to drive up there about 90 minutes, get to Newark. You got 2 great basketball games happening Thursday night, worth the price of admission. BYU versus Alabama. This is going to be a game. The over-under in all these games, I want to read them, 148, 153, 157. BYU, Alabama, 176. This is going to be a track meet. These two teams can do one thing really well, and that's score the basketball. Alabama's a 5.5-point favorite. Who do you guys got? Alabama or BYU?
Yeah, I hate to burst John Suggs' bubble here, but this is where BYU heads back to Utah, and this is the end of the road for them. I like Alabama here. I just think Alabama right now, they are winning games and they haven't been playing great. Like, I think they had a chance to go back to campus, reset. Now you really get to get those guys back in gear. I mean, the fact that I would say the first game, you probably got C+ game against Robert Morris, and then against, St. Mary's, I'd say B-, maybe B. But in reality, I've seen this Bama team play so much better throughout the year in general. And Mark Sears, of course, is the big one. Like, he's going to be the most important piece to that team there. But Grant Nelson should be the mismatch in this one. I said it before the tournament started. I thought Grant Nelson might be the biggest X factor for this Alabama team. I think this is where that comes into play. You have a 7-footer that's able to create his own shot off the dribble, defend the rim, and really just get to his spots on the outside. Like, I just think this Alabama team is going to be too much for BYU to handle. I think it is going to be a high-scoring game, but I think Bama pulls away late.
Shai, where are you at on this one?
I'm going to agree with Cottrell mostly in that I think Bama wins. I think BYU covers, though. I think this goes down. This goes down in the last minute. I think they shoot too well. I think BYU actually is probably a little bit underrated defensively. Alabama's been in that same category kind of with Kentucky all year where they've struggled on that side of the floor. I think if BYU can come out early and make a bunch of shots and really kind of get into the game and, sustain that first wave of Alabama, then I think we have a really good game. So I do think Alabama down the stretch will make the plays to count. I think they win. But the spread, I think the spread's 5.5, something like that. I think BYU covers.
Kabakita is the guy that is the key to this game for BYU. If he can alter shots in the lane like he has the first 2 rounds, Bama's going to have problems if they're not hitting their shots. Bama has not, for a team that scores at a great rate, has not shot the ball as well as they normally do during the season. To score 90 and 80 points, you would think they would. They haven't. Mark Sears was 5 for 15 from the floor. You need a Mark Sears game for this game to be good for Alabama. I like Alabama. I think they're better. I think they're going to be more experienced in the lane, and they play a little bit better defense than people give them credit for. I'll take Alabama. I'll take Alabama in a high-scoring game. Give me Alabama 90, BYU 84. Let's move on to the next round, our next game. And this is, let's just stay in Prudential Center. Let's just stay right in the Prudential Center. We'll attack it by region. Not right region, but we'll attack it by where they're playing. Arizona versus Duke, 9:40 game. Look, Caleb Love said he's ready. The guy looked great last round. 29 points. I don't believe it, though. I don't. I think this Duke team is deep. And if Proctor keeps playing the way he does, you got another week with Flag being healthy. Is Duke too much for this Arizona team?
He played earlier in the year, and I think Duke won by like 5 or 6 at Arizona, I think. Or maybe it was a neutral court. I forget. I believe Caleb Love's going to be ready. I believe Caleb Love will have a great game. I just don't think Caleb Love's going to be enough. Proctor's playing out of his mind right now. Flag is playing great. And if they, we talked about it earlier in the show, I don't want to see it come down to this, but if you watch the last game, I mean, if they're going to keep letting these teams play defense overtly physical, Duke's going to be a really, really, really tough out. Because they can guard 1 through 5. They can pretty much switch off almost anything they want to. I just don't think Arizona has the firepower to stay in this game. I think somebody from Duke would have to have a really bad game for Arizona to probably pull this off. So I like the Dukies kind of big here.
I like Duke to win it as well, but I don't know, man. The way Caleb Love was talking after that Arizona game, I love it. I absolutely love it.
I do too.
I think, especially coming off of that performance, you said he had 29 in the last one against Oregon, but for me, it wasn't that. Like him having 29, obviously we know Caleb Love can fill up the stat sheet. For me, he was making all the right decisions. Like Caleb Love is normally a guy who, ultimately what ran him out of town at North Carolina, he was a shot chucker. He was, he made your offense stagnant and, didn't play the right way. And even last year at Arizona, I mean, it was kind of the same way. But that last game against Oregon, he was really running the one on the team there. I mean, he was getting to his shots. He was getting in lane, taking smart floaters, things like that. He was hitting his open jumpers, but he was also setting his teammates up for success. I think Arizona's playing with the confidence right now. But with all that said, I still like Duke. I just think Duke is too deep. And they just have better players all around. But I do think Caleb Love will be up for the challenge. I think this is a game that can be somewhat close down the stretch. But again, similar to how I see the other one, I think Duke will pull away late and move on to the Elite Eight.
Last time they played,
good. I was
last time
say,
they played, Caleb had 8 points, and he played terrible. He was 3 of 13 from the floor. Yeah. They played at Arizona, and Duke beat him by 14 points. I think that Duke absolutely buries them again. I think the matchup between Proctor and Caleb Love is almost a wash. I know Caleb Love's a better player right now, but I think Tyrese Proctor has been playing better or just as well as Caleb Love has. So I think that's a wash. And then you have Cooper Flag and the rest of that Duke team that's been absolutely just dominating basketball teams. They have the most 30-point wins this year, which is insane. They're beating the crap out of everyone. Even the game versus Louisville, like just kind of like get into that. Look, Duke as a whole, sorry, not Louisville. The game versus Baylor, that game was good to start the basketball game. It was like 26-24 Baylor. And then Duke went scorched earth. And they ended the half on a 23-4 run and just never looked back. 89-66. That was a game. VJ Edgecombe started that game well. It just was too much. Cooper Flag, Tyrese Proctor, and Knieppel. I say his name wrong all the time, but that guy's a sniper from 3. I like Duke in this game. I like him heavy.
I think he's more of a key, and I'll say this in that I don't think Proctor's going to have a bad game, but I think Caleb Love. I think Proctor has been a beneficiary of a lot of good plays and open looks, and he's buried every single one of them. Don't get me wrong. I think Caleb Love's going to make him earn it a little bit more, tomorrow night. And I think Caleb Love's going to go at him defensively as well. So I will be very curious to see what type of game both of those guys have. I don't think Arizona's anybody that can cover Cooper, which is ultimately going to be the biggest problem. But I agree. I just think Duke has too much depth. They can just come at you. You can put Cooper on the bench and they'll still come at you in waves. I just don't think Arizona's deep enough to handle that. I don't.
What odds do you give the Crab 5 of upsetting Florida Florida's 6.5-point favorite. The game's in San Francisco. The Crab Five's a very good team. I think the Crab Five, and it's funny, I said this before the tournament, I'll say it again. I think Maryland is Florida light. Like, I think that's exactly what they are as a whole. I think they're Florida, but not as good. They both run 4 or 5 deep. Thomas Ha is your 5th best scorer for Florida. Maryland's got 5 guys that average 11 points or more. But I think the X factor in this game is Walter Clayton Jr. is just on another level. And I think Florida is just overall better in almost every position on the basketball court.
I don't disagree with much of any of that. I think Maryland – I think the big upside with Maryland is they play so well together as a team, and they are so well balanced that they don't rely on one guy to do it every night. And any given night, some guy could go off for 18, 20, 22, and everybody else still plays their roles. And they play very well together as a unit. They're not selfish. But to your point, I think Florida is athletically, they're better than pretty much just everybody in the tournament. And they have guys that can absolutely just blow the roof off a gym if they have to. I don't think Maryland has that extra gear. So I like Florida. I would say I like Florida to cover here, actually. I think Maryland makes this a good game for, half and a couple minutes. And I think there'll be a big run in the second half where Florida just kind of pulls away and then goes and hides.
I mean, I think the one thing that we really have to look out for in this game is turnovers. The reason why UConn was able to stay in that game so long against that Florida team was Florida had like 9 turnovers at halftime. And this is a team that only averages, I believe, 13 for the entire game. So to have 9 at halftime, like that's really what kept UConn in the game. And of course, UConn was playing well. They were playing great defense. And they were also shooting the ball, fairly well there, as well. But I think if Florida can make sure that they cut down on the turnovers and really just keep those Maryland bigs off the boards, I think Florida will be in a great spot. You talk about Queen, Julian Reese, Angel Reese's brother, is also on that Maryland roster. He gets a ton of rebounds every game. I think if you could do a good job of keeping Queen and Reese off the boards, you're going to put yourself in a great spot. And I agree with both of you that Walter Clayton Jr. is going to be the neutralizer there. If you need the big shots, you can put the ball in his hands, and he showed you last game that he can absolutely take over a basketball game. So I'm actually with Bill here. I like Florida. I actually do like him to cover as well.
Next game on the docket is Arkansas versus Ole Miss. Not Ole Miss versus Texas Tech. Guys, I see this game completely different than most people. I've been hearing a lot of people calling for Arkansas upset. I don't see that at all. I think where Arkansas' strength is, Texas Tech's strength is right there. I think Jacob Toppin dominates in this basketball game. I think that I don't think this game's close. And I think that the neutralizer for Arkansas is supposed to be Adu, but Adu has nothing on what Jacob Toppin can do. I'm going with Texas Tech, and I'm going with Texas Tech big.
I'm going to agree with you here. I'll be brief as well. I think Texas Tech is very balanced offensively, and they are one of the dominant defensive teams left in the tournament on the other side of the court. I think Arkansas is not going to get a lot of second chance points. I think Texas Tech is going to control rebounding. I think they're going to offensively rebound as well. Their overall game is just it's almost made for the tournament. It's not take a lot of chances, play great defense, be physical, score enough points on the end of the court and kind of survive and advance. I think Arkansas kind of, I feel like we've gone through spurts with Arkansas like this during the year. And then eventually they do throw in a really bad clunker. And I think the clunker will be this weekend. So I like Texas Tech. I like them to cover as well.
Well, I will go on the flip side of both of you guys. I like Arkansas. I think with them getting Adu back, he's their leading scorer and, obviously a big piece for them. I think this is an Arkansas team that has a ton of confidence. And I think for a lot of other teams, like Gene, you talked about earlier, how, we don't have like a true mid-major as like a 10 seed, things like that. I think this Arkansas team has a different feel to it. I know they're a 10 seed, but this is an SEC school. This is a team that's led by John Calipari. Like, he's been to the Final Four, been in championships games. I mean, he went to one off the top of my head with Kentucky when he had Julius Randle as an 8 seed. So like, he knows what it takes to go to games as a lower seeded coach. And I think those kids that have a ton of confidence there. And I think with the addition of a dude coming back, you got Boogie Flan there as well. That's been playing well throughout the tournament so far. I think Arkansas is going to be able to withstand the barrage from Texas Tech. I think this is going to be a fight. I think this has the potential to be the best game of the entire weekend, but I like Arkansas to edge out a very, very tight game.
Ole Miss, Michigan State. I think that Michigan State shooting is going to run them out of a game. I think this might be the one. I'll take Michigan State to get knocked off earlier than I had them predicted in the bracket. I'll take Ole Miss to win this one, and I think it's an upset. I think it's an upset with the way Michigan State's been playing these first halves. They're going to get themselves caught in one of these battles, and obviously they couldn't take advantage of it the last game. But if Michigan State starts as cold as they do, like they did versus New Mexico, they will not win this basketball game. Give me Ole Miss for the upset.
I'm going Spartans here. I think you'll see Michigan State play a little bit different. Izzo having a full, for lack, almost a full week to get ready. By the time they take the court, defensively, I think Michigan State's better. Ole Miss is another one of those teams, kind of the mid tier of the SEC that's had a great year, a better year than expected. I just think Michigan State is more talented across the court as well. I think Jace and company, I think they'll make more shots. I think they'll play a little bit more responsible on the offensive side of the ball as well. I think, between Izzo and everybody else coaching, I think they'll clean a lot of stuff up because they've been a little bit sloppy. They've been a little sloppy, a little haphazard with the ball as well. I think you'll see all that go away. I think this will look more like an Izzo team come this weekend. And I don't think this is where Michigan State meets their maker. So I think Michigan State to squeak one out here.
This is a game where it felt like it has like the biggest question mark by it. I don't know what either of these teams are at this point. Ole Miss has played their last game against Iowa State. They played well, but Iowa State was a team who I'd already had my doubts with because of the injury to their second best player. And then of course they beat North Carolina team first. But on the flip side of it, I look at Michigan State and they beat Bryan by 20 plus, but I didn't think they looked great in that game. And then the game against New Mexico, again, I didn't think that they didn't look great either. But with that said, though, I think ultimately Michigan State is a team, I can't bet against Izzo, like Brandon said. I think they're a team that's going to play great defense. They're going to be able to get their shots in the paint. And, you could talk about a team shooting them out of the gym all you want to. I think Ole Miss is a team where, they have to legitimately rely on, those outside shots. And if those aren't falling, like Michigan State has the ability to run them out the gym because they're going to beat them on the offensive boards beat them on the boards. And if they can get out in transition, that's what Michigan State likes to do. So I can see this game really going any direction, but ultimately I'm going to rely on Michigan State's experience and just sheer dominance in the paint to take over in this one.
People in the chat are wild. I have to delete it. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Come on, Joyce. What are we doing? But it's crazy. It's crazy. I can't. It broke me. All right. So next game on the agenda. I'm going to stay in the South region. We'll talk about Auburn versus Michigan. Auburn 8.5 point spread. Your thoughts on Auburn, Michigan? Shal, you can go last on this one because it is your squad. But I would love to hear what Cottrell. I think me and Cottrell are on the same page, like the exact same page.
Yeah. So for me, I think Michigan has played well, and I was kind of expecting them to play somewhat well in the tournament. They've been playing great basketball since the beginning of the Big Ten tournament there. But I think this is ultimately where their season comes to an end, and I don't think this is necessarily close. I think this is your blowout of the weekend, and, it's no disrespect to Michigan. I just think that the strengths of their team is, dominating in the paint and kicking out to their shooters. Like Roddy Gale had a great game their last game against A&M, and they're going to rely on to basically play inside out. And I think Auburn is a team that's built to literally stop that. So I think Auburn is going to put them in a really tough spot. And I see Auburn blowing that game open. So I like Auburn, and I like Auburn big.
I just want to say I agree with you. I also want to add that this is my caveat. Nothing against Michigan. Michigan's played great. Auburn's been one of the best teams in the country all year. If Bruce Pearl loses this basketball game, I'm just saying this because the way they look the opening 2 rounds, they look lazy. They look lethargic. You cannot look that way versus Michigan this week. I'm hoping that Bruce Pearl gets them back and gets them ready to play inspired basketball because Auburn has not looked like the good Auburn for about a month. I think Auburn wins this game. I think they're statistically a mismatch for Michigan. But with that being said, they better wake the hell up, man. There's no way you're going to wake up.
I mean, listen, this is where I had Michigan getting eliminated. I felt comfortable they were going to win their first round game, and I thought they would beat Texas A&M because they had too much variety on the offensive side of the ball. I think Auburn is definitely the more athletic team, the more experienced team. And that being said, I mean, like you said, they've been a top 2 or 3 team the entire year. But they've had periods of play so far that were, to Gene's point, they've looked a little bit lethargic. They look a little bit disinterested. I think Michigan will play well enough to keep this close. I don't think Michigan's blown out. I don't. I think with them being able to run the 2 7-foot bigs, as long as nobody gets in foul trouble, it's going to be something that Auburn hasn't seen at all. I think that'll create enough mismatches as long as Michigan hits some of their shots. I think they can keep touch and stay close. I think Auburn ultimately wins the game. But I actually feel pretty confident that Michigan covers.
Let's move on to Kentucky versus Tennessee. And in a game in which I'll be very clear when I say this, I know a lot of people are projecting this game to be close. I don't see it. And I understand the familiarity. And I've made mention about Kentucky's coaching. I've made mention of it multiple times. But I don't want it to be a Mark Pope like this class. I think he's coaching guys that aren't his guys. With that being said, I think Tennessee dominates. I love what Chaz Lanier's done, and you're running into a situation where you are getting 2 of the best, I guess, guard play with Zakai Ziegler, Chaz Lanier. I think they're too much for Kentucky. I think their leadership as a whole between those guys versus Kentucky and a team that just always looks disoriented, never looks like they understand how to break the press. I love Tennessee in this game. I think they blow them out.
I don't think this is a blowout. I think this is going to be a hell of a basketball game. They're both familiar with each other, played each other twice this year already. It's going to be, this game strictly for me, it's kind of a battle of matchups and a battle of wills. And I think whoever executes better is going to win. Tennessee comes in as definitely the better defensive team. Like Gene's been harping on all tournament long. They have the 2 stud guards. Kentucky is a little bit banged up, but Kentucky wants to get out and run a gun and just go up and down the court. I think this game really boils down to how Tennessee executes on the offensive side of the ball. I think if they have a decent night shooting, and they show up with their standard of defense and clamp down and really limit Kentucky to one and dones and clean the glass, then I think it's a really good chance Tennessee wins. So I think this game falls on Tennessee more than it does Kentucky for me. I think if Tennessee shows up and does what they're supposed to do, I think they win. If they don't, and Kentucky shoots well, especially from the outside, and they get some shots to fall, Tennessee is not built to play catch up. That's not how they play. If Kentucky can get out to a 10, 12-point lead and start making Tennessee take shots earlier in the shot clock, that is not how they want to play. So Tennessee's got to show up and take care of business on their end and do their thing. I ultimately like them to advance because, again, I will take the team that I think can get a stop in crunch time versus a team that doesn't. But I think there's a lot of ways this game breaks for Kentucky, though. I don't think this is one-sided as a lot of people think it is.
Well, it's funny. I said it wrong. Kentucky actually won both matchups. I thought they split. They did not. Kentucky won both matchups versus Tennessee this year. I just don't. I still think it'll be a lot different. I think tournament time, where you're at with the way Chaz Lanier's playing right now, like the shot making ability he has, it felt like every time they needed a shot, he was Walter Clayton Jr. for Tennessee. So I'm still going with Tennessee. I'm still riding that.
Yeah, and I get it. I get Tennessee on paper is the way that they've looked. Like I think Tennessee is the better basketball team, and I had Tennessee beating, like I had Tennessee advancing all the way to the Elite Eight. So I'm still going to ride with that pick there. But the one thing that does kind of I wouldn't say concern me, but I think will be interesting to watch is the Kentucky and Tennessee matchups throughout the regular season. The big thing is, as great as Lanier and Ziegler are, Kentucky runs a lineup like their starting lineup. They have big guards, and those big guards cause problems. And they're not great defensively. And I'm with you guys, on that. But in those games against Tennessee throughout the regular season, they held them to 64 and I think 73 in the other game. And the guards didn't shoot well in either game. So I think that's going to be something to watch for. I get it. Tournament time is different. I say it all the time. It's hard to beat a good team twice in the same season. It's even harder to beat a good team 3 times in the same season. So, I just don't see that happening. I think Tennessee, they've probably had this game circled. This is one that means more to them. So, I like Tennessee, and I think it's going to be a very close game though.
Last but not least, and we are getting to trivia right now, this last game, and then we're getting right to trivia, and then we're getting our third baseman list, and then we'll wrap up with a little NFL talk just quickly. Probably going to have to scratch the bracket till next week. That's fine. But Purdue at Houston, or Purdue at Houston, but Purdue versus Houston, the 4 versus the 1. The game's being played in Lucas Oil. It's actually Houston at Purdue, if we're being honest.
Stadium looks sweet.
I think I'm on the ledge here. I think I'm the only one on my ledge here. Shally, how do you see this game going? I like to see if I think I'll be the only one on the other side.
I'm pretty confident with Houston here. I think what they do is a bad matchup for Purdue. The way they play defense, especially running those 3 big guards. I think they're going to be able to keep just running at Purdue. I really do. If Purdue doesn't shoot exceptionally well from the outside, I don't think they're going to be able to play most of the time. I've seen Purdue play a bunch of times this year, and they actually play a little bit better when they play slow. But Houston excels at playing slow, and they actually play a little bit faster this year than they have in the past, and faster than people think. So on another given year, maybe this is maybe an upset thing. I think it's a horrible matchup for Purdue. I like Houston comfortably here.
So I think you're right, Bill, in the sense I think it's a bad matchup for Purdue, but in a sense, I also think it's kind of a bad matchup for Houston because I don't think Houston has a big that can take care of TKR in the post. And he's played well so far this tournament. And, I want to give all the credit in the world to Matt Painter because that's a guy who's been coaching his ass off this tournament. And I know it's only been against, High Point, and then the second game was against McNeese. So two small schools there. I don't look at it like, he beat these small schools. I look at it like, how did they look in those matchups? And I said it in the comments on Coffee and Sports either yesterday or today, whatever it was. But I think the important thing is how they look going into it. And Purdue had a great game plan. Matt Painter is excellent when it comes to preparation for games. So I do think, as a whole, Houston is a bad matchup for Purdue, but Houston has to figure out how they're going to cover that big, how they're going to cover TKR in the paint without getting in foul trouble. Do they double? Do they, rotate off of shooters? Is that going to leave open looks for Braden Smith? We got to figure out how that looks. For me, with all that said, I do still like Houston. I think as a whole, they are just too talented for this Purdue team, but I am very curious to see how they handle the paint presence of what Purdue has.
I think that this is why I think Purdue wins this game, and it's Matt Painter. I think what he's done with that Purdue basketball team, and I've discredited him year after year. to Zach Edey and understanding how to use him properly, and they did. I think Braden Smith being the senior guard that he is and playing the way that he's playing with Kaufman Wren in the paint, I think it's a perfect Jekyll and Hyde offensively. And I think with Kaufman Wren, they kind of sub him out a lot. They play a lot of offense, defense with him, but they're going to have to leave him on the court to protect the paint a little bit. That's what's going to have to happen for Purdue. He's going to have to play more minutes. I think Purdue can win this basketball game. I think it's going to be a very close game. I think Purdue definitely covers. I think this is one of the safest plays is Purdue plus the points. I love the way Painter coaches, and I love the way Purdue's been playing basketball. Give me Purdue. Without further ado, though, we have trivia. We took a full hour of NCAA March Madness. Check your bracket scores. Make sure you give us a share, and hopefully you're bringing home $680. You know what? Let's bump it up to $700 for first prize. Basically mapped out the $680. We're going to make it $700. First place taking $700 home. Let's get into tonight's trivia question. And it is between Scholastic Shalley and College Cottrell. And I'm not going college. I'm going to have a lot of fun with this one. I'll be honest with you guys. I forgot I had to do trivia question, and I had this one locked and loaded. This was one, this was in the paint. Normally, I try to make the trivia question centric to what we're talking about. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Fantasy football, top 10 players of the 2025 season, 2024-2025 season. That's the question. Top 10 players, most fantasy points leaders, NFL 2025 PPR. I have the list up. Shalley won last week. You are first to go.
Crap, I gotta go back into football mode here. Let's see what I have on my team.
What are you doing?
Seeing who I had on my team.
Oh, that's crazy.
You're looking up your fantasy players?
I know I had
you can't
one.
do that, bro. Get the phone
Why?
down.
It's my team.
That's crazy. That's
All
crazy
right.
work.
I'll go with Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow is number 4.
I'll stay in the same division. I'll go with Lamar Jackson.
Number 1.
Ooh.
Callie, we're right here.
I always look down when I'm thinking. Look all over the place when I'm thinking. Jamar Chase.
Number 2.
And I'd imagine the guy with 2,000 yards is also on the list. I'd take Saquon Barkley.
Number 8. That should be telling.
That's wild.
That is
Right,
wild.
I agree.
It's because he didn't score a lot of touchdowns. I will go with Jahmyr Gibbs.
Jahmyr Gibbs is number 6, highest ranked running back on the list. I kind of give a hint there too. Accidentally.
Well, yeah, no more running backs up there. I'll take the MVP. Give me Josh Allen.
Number 3. You guys are knocking him down. And I think you left the 4 hardest ones are left. Actually, 3 of the 4. There's one pretty easy in there.
I'll go with Justin Jefferson.
That is incorrect. That is a strike for Shalley.
I'm trying to think of who was also on on my team. I know someone who had a great year. Give me Malik Neighbors.
That is a strike for Cottrell.
I'll go
Now
back
the
to
first.
I'll go Amon-Ra St. Brown.
That is strike 2 for Shalley.
Shit.
I don't know if I should stick with my rookies or not. I'm gonna go with Brian Thomas Jr.
That is strike 2 for Cottrell. When you guys both get 3 strikes, I'll give a hint.
I wonder if he scored enough to get in there. I'll go with Jalen.
Jalen Hurts is strike 3 for Shally.
Let's see here. We have to.
By the way, Jalen Hurts, I think, was number 11.
Blah.
We have to have another that position here. I'm gonna stick with it. I'm rolling with the rookies. Give me Brock Bowers.
Strike 3. All right, so no more. This is what I'll say. No pass catchers are left on the list. That is my hint. No more pass catchers. That means wide receivers, tight ends. That doesn't mean running backs that catch the ball.
Okay, fair enough.
Wow, so we have quarterbacks and running backs. And there's 4 left.
4 left. 3-3.
I'll go with Derrick Henry.
Number 10, Derrick Henry. I thought he was the easy one left. The 3 hardest ones are left, in my opinion. The 3 ones I probably would have struggled with.
Go Jared Goff.
Nope. This is a commanding lead right here. You cannot be beat. You can just be tied with a correct answer here.
Go with Bijan Robinson.
Number 9, Bijan Robinson. You got 2 quarterbacks left.
Go with guy who had, I want to say, 41 touchdowns. I'll take Baker Mayfield.
Number 5, Baker Mayfield. I got to figure out a tiebreaker question just in case.
Could it be him? We said Lamar. We said Goss. I will go with. We said Burrow. I'll go with Sam Darnold.
Incorrect.
Fuck.
Got a shot. Got a shot.
Go with Jordan Love.
Nope. Incorrect. You had the shot. I think you wasted it.
I do too. I do too, my friend. I do too. Oh, I think I got it. I think I got it.
What else could it be?
Gene, give us some time. Give me something.
10 seconds. I don't know. You guys have been pretty quick. We've only been 7 minutes, and we're at the last one. So
I know.
You guys have been pretty quick.
I know.
I get it. You want to kind of speed up, Chow.
Absolutely.
5 seconds, Chow. 5 seconds.
I'll go Jaden Daniels.
God damn it. That's the one I was going to guess.
Should you give a rush to me?
That was the one I was going to guess.
He's a pressure cooker. All right, that's this week's trivia. That was the one I had in the chamber. I had that one like sitting in the chamber. So I was ready for the next. But yeah, Jaden Daniels was the last.
I have such a good one for the next time I lose, and I saved the link for it, and I went to look at it the other day, and now it's gone, and I can't find the freaking answer anywhere. No, there's 13, but it's a really good question. Because it's a good question because there's like 6 or 7 that are real obvious, and then you gotta like think for the other 3. But the other ones you have to think for like are all people like that we should get. It's a really good question, and I gotta find it again.
All righty, let's get into our third baseman's list. Kachar, you want to throw up the 10 through 6 just to kind of see where we're at here?
Absolutely, we do it every week, so gotta do it.
Throw it up.
Absolutely.
Solid list, guys. Loving it. Loving the list, guys. You guys are killing it all over here.
Alec Bohm. I see.
Alec Bohm's
is he in your top 5, Gene?
We'll find out. We will find out. Alec Bohm could be a top 5 third baseman for me, guys. Don't write him off for me. He's a Philadelphia Philly. Maybe I'm being a homer this year.
He's not on there. I'll fall this chair if he's in the top 5 for you.
It's funny. I don't know. This is the one question I have. I don't know if you have him top 5, and I'm hoping you do, Cottrell.
Who?
There's no way
top 10.
There's no way Mark Vientos is not on Cottrell's list. Vientos has to be 5. He has to be. There's no way he's not on your list. No way. So that's my thoughts when I look at this list. Shai, what's your thoughts when you look at this list? Anybody like that you agree, disagree?
You know what he's at.
I mean, the obvious one. Listen, I'll just be honest. Like, I just don't know how you think Mac Muncy's a better third baseman than Alec Bohm.
Clutch. Playoff performer.
Not clutch. Okay.
It's a better lineup, Super clutch guy.
I think the one thing for me with
it's fucking 230 every year.
With your list, Bill, is I get it. Nolan had a down year last year, but 10, like I just feel like that's
Nolan had it down 2 years. Let me be clear. My Nolan, where I'm with Nolan is projection. I'm gonna be very clear about that.
I'll be honest. I was shocked he was as high as he was on both your lists. To be honest,
I have him more projection bouncing back. But I understand. Honestly, I thought I was going to be very high with him.
I listen. I have a crush on that guy, so I hope you're right. I hope I'm wrong.
I just ultimately think that if the Cardinals don't perform this year, I could see him getting traded, and maybe you see a resurgence from him. And you already know he's going to be one of the best defensive third basemen in the league. So
Control, he's been awful. He actually wasn't last year. He was terrible last year.
I get it.
I get it.
I get it.
Top 6 defensively
from his standard.
From his standard, yeah. From his standard,
yeah. I get it. But I mean, 270 last year. I get it. It wasn't good. Neither was Goldie. I expect Goldie. He's have a resurgence with the Yankees this year. I'm saying I think Arnott, like maybe he can go somewhere else or just find his foot in there. Like giving him his respect.
He's got a full no trade. They tried to trade him last year and he said no. So
Bose,
you really picky where he goes.
I was Bose. That wasn't me. It was Bose. Bose. I didn't say it. By the way,
Bose is a Yankees fan. That's fine.
But to be clear, I think Bohm's defense was 8th in the league last year. All right, let's go into top 5 because I know I'm going to see Vientos on Cottrell's top 5 list, and I love it. I love the projection of Vientos in the top 5. Cottrell, show me Vientos. There we go. I'm okay with it. I love the list. I think he did great. I'm not lying.
Mark Vientos is in my top 5. Swaggy V, New York Mets. Look, we talked about Frankie last week and what he did for the Mets last season and what he did, down the stretch. I mean, he was second best player in NL down the stretch. I mean, if it wasn't for Ohtani having the crazy season that he did, Frankie would have been in the MVP talks. But the person that really kept this Mets team afloat last year was Mark Vientos. And the fact that he's 25 going into the literal prime of his career, I'm expecting a monster season from him. Like it was one thing to go into last year where, Cohen and everybody just had no expectations for that team. They basically said, we're punting on the season. We're going to 2025. For them to burst on the season the way that they did. And, now there are these expectations there with them. I think he's going to be primed for it. I think he is going to have a monster year. So I like Mark Vientos. I wanted to put him higher, but I was like, you know what? 5 is bold enough for me. I'll put him there, and I'm expecting him to have a great year.
I'll be 100% honest. I don't know what order you have them in, but I think the top 5 that me and Gene have are the, in my opinion, the clear-cut 5. I think Vientos is a great story. Everybody knows who he is now, too. I think everything that possibly could have went his way last year went his way. I don't think that happens this year. But he's still a very good player, so I have him on my list. But I'm starting number 5, Matt Chapman, San Fran. Ridiculously good defensively. He's right up in that company with Nolan Arenado, both platinum Gold Glove winners. Guy's kind of the standard for defense at the hot corner. And his bat's actually come around a little bit. Career high in batting average, I believe, last year. Decent amount of home runs and RBIs in a non-hitters park in San Francisco. And he's kind of trying to make him one of the cornerstones of that rebuild effort out there. They just keep coming up with players short here or there. But in regards to what he does, he's been doing it for a long time, kind of under the radar, to be honest, because he's always overshadowed by guys like Nolan Arenado, when he's in the American League and a couple, J-Ram and guys like that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. But the dude's an absolute stud. Been a big fan of him for a long time, so he comes in at number 5 for me.
I'll answer this question first. With Bregman being the third baseman instead of Devers, where do you put him? I would remove Devers, obviously, and I would put him 6th behind Vientos. That's where I would have Bregman. Matt Chapman, statistically, was the second best third baseman in baseball last year. Now, he absolutely had second season over a 7 WAR, defensive Gold Glove, best batting season that he's had. Chapman's a very good third baseman. However, this is a projections list, and the 4 guys ahead of him are absolute cornerstone studs. Yeah, with the news that Bregman will be playing third and Devers will be DHing, I guess Devers being number 4 here, you obviously know we have him number 4 strictly for the guy's bat. The guy's bat is unbelievable, and that's where we got to stay with that, right? Rafael Devers is going to crush the ball. 272 batting average, 28 home runs. Like, he's absolutely going to continue to mash. I have Devers number 4, and for the reasons of his bat.
Defensively, he is the weakest of the 4 or the 5 on here by quite a distance, actually.
The biggest margin you want to
the biggest margin you want it to be, correct. But that being said, the guy's a killer in the box. He's carried that team the last 2 years where they've kind of been rebuilding, and they're starting to get better. I actually think Boston will be a little bit better than people think they're going to be this year. But everybody thought he was going to struggle once Xander left. Didn't really dip at all. The guy is dangerous, and when he gets hot, he's one of those guys that you will turn on SportsCenter and you'll hear, Devers hit his 5th home run in 3 games. He's that type of guy when he gets going. So his bat alone keeps him on this list because he's that dangerous. So he comes in at number 4 for me.
Yeah, he's also at number 4 for me. I'm not going to beat a dead horse here with that. I mean, we also talked about him moving to DH. News actually just came out today that Alex basically told him, got him in line with the winning culture. Like, he wants to do what's best for winning, and so he's going to be DH and probably for most of the season there. So obviously we know he's crazy at the plate there, and that's ultimately why he's on this list here. But I'll just go right into number 3 here with Austin Riley, and I think he's another person that follows the exact same trend of a lot of other Braves that we've talked about on other lists. Down year last year, injury throughout the year, numbers weren't where Austin Riley normally is, but again, just like with every other player that we've talked about so far, he's going to be back this year. He's going to be healthy. That Braves lineup is absolutely loaded. And when he is healthy and when he's at the plate, he can be one of the best hitters, not just for third base, but in all of baseball. So I think Austin Riley is going to be primed for a great, bounce back year and, show why he's a top 3 third baseman in baseball.
So number 3, I got Manny Machado. Again, you talk about the standard and guys that have been doing it for a long time. Manny, I think, has almost got taken for granted since going to San Diego because he's on the West Coast. But the guy's been doing it at an extremely high level for almost a decade. I remember he was a free agent. Everybody in the Philly, everybody around here wanted him to sign him and Bryce. That obviously wasn't going to happen. But the guy's a stud still. I think he's top 7 defensively still last year, still at 100 RBIs. He's still doing everything he's been doing for a long time. I have him for number 3 only because kind of the reasons Cottrell just said. I think, I put Austin ahead of him for, I think he just has a bounce back type of year. But I think, my 2 and 3 are different than yours, but I think they're extremely interchangeable depending on what you value.
Absolutely. I think Austin Riley is an absolute stud. He had a terrible year last year. But when I look at the 3 years he had prior, 160 games played all 3 years, 30 home runs, like the guy was a benchmark for consistency for the Atlanta Braves. I think last year was an aberration. I think he goes back to playing 150 games, hits over 30 home runs. over 100 RBIs, and he's Austin Riley. Manny Machado has put another staple into his Hall of Fame career. He once again had another great year last year, 274 batting average, good defensive third baseman. I mean, the guy does it all. Great third baseman as a whole. Leads that San Diego Padres team. He's going to have another 30 home runs. Going to have another 100 RBI season. He's just that guy. He's the model of consistency right now. That's my number 2.
Number 2, I'm going with Austin for the reasons I just said, and you guys have both talked about already. I think he stays healthy this year. I think he has a huge bounce back year, hitting in front of Matt Olson or behind him, whichever one it's going to be. I think his numbers take a jump, and honestly, I almost think Austin's kind of in scratch at the surface of becoming a big name superstar, and I think we see that jump this year. I really do. I know Acuna's on the team and Olson and a bunch of other guys, but he is one of the guys that makes that team really dangerous and makes that team tick. And for a big guy, he is incredibly agile as a third baseman. Reminds me a lot of honestly of Scott Rowland back in the day, a guy that was really big, looked like a linebacker, but could move and was just gifted at fielding a baseball. So I have Austin Riley number 2.
So for me, my number 2 is Manny Machado. Again, similar to what you guys have already said. Gene, the one word that you used for him that I love is consistency. You know what you're going to get every single year out of him. He's going to be, top 10 defensively every single year. Early in his career, obviously, he's a gold glove kind of guy. Was a great defender, but still a really good defender there. And then at the plate, I mean, if he plays 160 games, he's 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, in his sleep kind of guy. So model of consistency there. I think the Padres are going to have some success again this year. And, I think a big part of that is going to be because of Manny Machado. So I do like him coming in at number 2. But number 1, guy that, it's finally nice to finally have a guardian on this list. My guy, Jose Ramirez. This is a guy who, I know he's number 1 on our list, and he's probably universally thought of as the best third baseman in baseball. Like, I think you ask pretty much anyone, they're going to say that. But I feel like as a whole, he's probably one of the most underrated players in general in baseball. I mean, this is a guy who last year could have had he was so close to having a 40 doubles, 40 home run, and 40 stolen bases season. Which is kind of wild because you hear Shohei do 50-50-50 last year, and that got all the hype. But the 40-40-40 club would have been absolutely nuts. And this guy who has no MVPs and, he's in Cleveland, doesn't have, a ring or anything like that yet. But a guy that every single year, what you're going to get. He's a guy who's going to finish top 5 in MVP voting. He's going to have the numbers offensively and defensively. And, a guy who I truly love because he even took the hometown discount. He signed with Cleveland for like $120 million when he could have easily got 200 plus on the open market. So J-Ram, team player, does everything the right way. Model of consistency, my number 1 third baseman for this upcoming year.
I have J-Ram as well. Number 1 on my list. Number 1 in Cottrell's heart. A guy... consistency is a great word for it, but when you're that consistent at that high a level is not an easy thing to do. When we're talking about almost going on a decade here. Hold your ears, Cottrell. I wish he would get the hell out of Cleveland and go to a contender because I think for as much as he has been loyal, I think he's paid his dues there and done what he's needed to do for Cleveland. I like him. I think he's a very likable guy. Doesn't say a lot, just goes out and plays and does his thing and doesn't make a whole lot of noise. That's the type of guy I would love to see get a chance at a World Series before he's done. Because it's the only thing. I mean, if he quit today, he's probably in the Hall of Fame. So it's going to be the only thing missing from his record to really kind of put the cherry on top. But underrated defensively, smashes from both sides of the plate, great leader, everything you want your third baseman. I think he's been number 1, maybe not every year. It depends since we started the show. Probably not. But dude's a stud. Love everything about him. So number 1 for me.
Got to give Jose Ramirez credit. There was a time in the 2023 season where I felt like he was letting himself go. He got up to 220 pounds, got all the way down to 190 pounds. Had one of the best WAR years of his career. Absolutely rakes at the plate. And he came in this year, and Guardians Insider asked him, did you lose weight? And he goes, no, I didn't. I gained muscle. He's been really putting in the conditioning program. And at 32 years old, he looks like he's still in the prime of his career. Jose Ramirez is number one for me. And I mean, the way he's been carrying that Guardians team, you need to say no less than Jose Ramirez, number one on my list. Hey, we got time. Let's do the bracket if you got it up. I didn't know how long the third baseman thing was going to go. I just want to give you guys a heads up. Next week, we'll be doing our full MLB. Full MLB, our awards, our division winners, everything will be going there for next week's show. We don't want to rush it. We had NCAA bracket this week. We had a ton to break down, and we want to be able to give you a full preview. Sorry that it's going to be like 4 days into the season. Oh, well. If you want me to give you our World Series predictions, I'll give them to you now. I got the Dodgers. And the Dodgers winning the World Series.
We're going to limb.
Dodgers, Yankees. You going Dodgers, Yankees again?
No,
Jesus,
no.
Chalk of all chalk.
Yankees
and we have the outfielders list next week, which is usually the most interesting by far because we don't separate it by position. We just go top 10 across the board. So
we have our final four in the most shocking sports story of the 21st century. And it's kind of where we're at. Now you guys have to remind me because I don't know who the final four is.
We have Kobe's passing. We have the Lance Armstrong steroids. We have the Tiger Woods scandal, I believe, moved on. And then the Hernandez murders.
Okay.
Wait.
The left side of the bracket is incredible.
Did I miss something?
Did Tiger beat Joe? Because I don't think it did.
I mean, I voted Joe.
Yeah, the PSU scandal beat.
That's what I thought.
I voted Joe.
I voted Joe. Scandal.
Okay, then yeah.
But the left side of the bracket is extremely easy right now, and I think we talk a little bit more about it in the finals. But Kobe's passing is 100% more shocking than Lance Armstrong's steroids. Can we all agree there and get on the right side of the bracket and start talking?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not. I wouldn't vote for Lance. I would also let the Lance thing was a really big deal. That's all I'm going to say. It's not Kobe. It's not Kobe's orbit, but the Lance Armstrong
George Mason was a really big deal. They made the Final Four. They didn't win the national championship. He made the Final Four. I know the Lance thing was a huge deal. Kobe brought me to tears. That's not even. I don't think it's competitive.
No, I agree.
Okay.
I still want to understand that.
Yeah, it's fair. I don't want to undersell Lance, but we undersold him. We basically gave him his roses for 2 rounds in a row. His roses for being a cheater. So whatever you want to call them. Maybe they're dead roses. On the right side of the bracket, this is where you got a little bit of a conversation. The Penn State scandal and the Hernandez murders are worldwide shocking stories. Let's go top to bottom. We'll start with Cottrell, Shally, me. And then in the finals, we'll go Shally, me, Cottrell. Is that fair?
That's fine with me. This one is tough, man. I mean, obviously, we know what we know what happens with the Penn State scandals, and we know what happens with the Hernandez murders there. But the fact that the Hernandez murder, like, he was still playing at a Pro Bowl caliber level when all this comes out. I mean, this is the prime of his career, just signed a new contract. So like, I think that portion of it makes that so shocking. But the PSU scandal, it ultimately does get my vote here. It being a situation, I said it before last time we went over this, but anytime the death penalty is put on the table for a university, that's a really big deal. And obviously, Penn State didn't get that, but it definitely was floated out there, and something that very well could have happened to that university. So for me, I'm rolling with the Penn State scandal, but I think this one is close. Gene made it sound like he doesn't think it's that close, but For me, this one's a close series.
I made this sound like it wasn't close.
I thought that's what you said.
No, I said the left side wasn't close. The Kobe passing and the Lance Armstrong steroids. This is two scandals that rocked the world.
I mean, I don't. This is closer than the other side. I don't think it's super close either, though. I've joked a lot about the Hernandez thing, and I think the Hernandez thing to me was more. I guess fascinating is probably the word, because the more every layer of this got unpeeled, it became something else. But that being said, I don't want to say the writing was on the wall, but when you look back at it in hindsight and realize what he was doing in Florida, what he was doing before he was in Florida, is it still shocking that he's out literally going to practice till 6 and then getting in a car and shooting somebody at 8 o'clock at night? Yeah, that's a little wild for sure. It just doesn't beat Penn State for me, though, just because of just everything surrounding that situation. So this is the end of the road for Aaron, for me anyway.
I mean, I would have voted the PSU scandal also. The Hernandez murders were absolutely awful. But what happened in Penn State, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more here. Shao, you could start in the finals here. Just go right to that. We have Penn State scandal versus the Kobe passing, the most shocking sports story of the 21st century. What is your vote for the finals? A 7 versus a 1, Cinderella.
I mean, Penn State has no business being a 7.
I agree.
Kobe, it was shocking just because he was young and all of those things that make it heartbreaking. I think Kobe's, if I had to describe the Kobe situation, I would almost lean to the side of, like, if you asked me in one word to describe it, I wouldn't say shocking. I would say tragic. And I don't mean that to devalue what happened, but again, I hate to say it, but we've seen the last, couple months, like planes crash, helicopters crash, stuff like that happens. I wouldn't use the word shocking to describe Kobe. It's horribly tragic. Like Gene said, I cried when it happened. I remember exactly where I was, exactly what I was doing. I remember exactly how I found out. I remember all that, and it was sad. And I've said this before. It's tragic to me because of kind of, if you look at the arc of Kobe's life and, whatever you choose to believe or not believe, but he went through that rough patch, fixed his marriage, had beautiful daughters, finished his NBA career, and it was really almost still ascending to being a person that was going to give back and be an amazing father and coach and, just advocate and spokesperson for the game. I think we got robbed of kind of seeing what was at the end of his journey. And that's what makes it even harder for me and makes it more tragic, because we didn't get to see, the final act of what Kobe was, what he was going to be. And then you factor in his daughters and everybody else that was on the helicopter. The Penn State thing, again, I'm not trying to go long, but it's just, if you grew up around here, we've said this before with other things tonight, Penn State was the standard on how to run a program, how to get coached, squeaky clean, all of it. If you want to be coached hard, but raised to be a great man, go to Penn State. That was their MO, and they were really good at football. And Joe Paterno was this almost mythical, person at the university that, the whole college revolves around. And when that all broke, man, and again, I joke about being a Michigan fan, but I don't root against Penn State. I never have. That just devastated people. There's still people that, don't even talk about it. So to wind it up, man, it's hard for me to still even kind of put into words the Penn State thing, because it's the last thing I never would have expected ever. Like I'm shocked. I never would have expected a scandal to come out of that program, let alone, like Cottrell said, a scandal that had to do with, sexually assaulting little kids and Penn State. When you talk about Penn State and the reputation, like Cottrell said, I mean, the death penalty was on the table from NCAA. Like they were considering it like that. Growing up, I never, you could have told me in a million years that's what I thought was going to happen ever with that program or with that university. So it's a little bit of a homer pick probably for me, but I'm going to go with Penn State.
All right. Well, Cottrell, you're going to have a decision to make. I'll just give you a heads up early. The Penn State situation was sickening. And the Kobe situation was tragic. The answer is I have to answer what's more shocking. And you listen to Jerry Sandusky talk for 5 minutes, and I don't know how shocking that was to me. That guy's an absolute creep. And I was disgusted over what happened. I think as a man that prides himself on ethics and morals and doing the right thing, whether someone's looking or not looking, it bothers me that someone like Joe Paterno reported it, but knowing how big of a figurehead he is, knowing the impact he could have had, he could have done more. It's sickening what happened at Penn State. Absolutely sickening. The kids that were I can't even get into it. Oh, I'm going to throw up my mouth.
Yeah.
The Kobe passing absolutely brought tears to my eyes. It was, I knew the moment, where I was, I think I'm almost 100% sure it was a Sunday morning. It was Saturday night game. The Philadelphia 76ers played the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron James just passed Kobe on the scoring record. I remember because I was at the game and I was thinking Kobe might be there to congratulate LeBron. And then to find out he wasn't there because he had Gigi's practice the next morning was awful. And when you hear Kobe died, then you hear his daughter Gigi was on the plane. And then there was other kids that were, another child that was being flown in. It hit me. As an adult grown man, I don't think I've ever weeped over a professional I've never met in my life dying. But when that situation happened, it was beyond shocking to me. So to answer the question, I'm going to go Kobe is more shocking, but these are the two finals. This is the finals. This is Kobe and the Penn State scandal is the finals. The Kobe thing it was tough to believe.
Yeah, so I just talked, a lot about the PSU scandal in the last round. Didn't really say much about the Kobe passing, but the Kobe passing, I think, was such a big deal because we were finally starting to see a different side of Kobe. Like we were seeing the great competitor. We were seeing, the Mamba mentality. Like we saw that throughout his entire career. But after he retired and, he was a dad, like seeing him at basketball games, like seeing him interact with some of the players, seeing him go on shows like Jimmy Fallon or just Sports Center, like just shows like that in general, just showing a different side of him, coaching his daughter and, just really showing us the personality that he really was outside of just being a great basketball player. And to then just have that kind of ripped out of, thin air, definitely was wild. One of those, I'm trying to think of everything on the list here, and the Kobe passing is the only one that I vividly and again it's somewhat recent outside of the Luka to LA one. I'm thinking that this is the most recent one. But with all that said, like this is one of those where you remember where you were at. Like Gene said, you remember what you were doing. And it was a Sunday. It definitely was a Sunday. It was like the end of the morning, early afternoon, sometime between like 11 and 12. And then like originally TMZ reported it like, Kobe dies in a plane crash. And it's like, what? Like, no way. Like that can't be true. Like, I don't know. I don't even know what it was about Kobe. Obviously, he was so well loved, across the entire world. The love that he had for Italy, traveling over there, trying to expand the game, in the European area. Here, being as great as he was, Mamba mentality, shooting pieces of paper into a garbage, yelling Kobe. Like obviously, one of the biggest impacts on the game of basketball of any player, in the history of the sport. But it really felt like, for me and, my friends at the time, like it felt like that was impossible. Like Kobe was just bigger than life. Like at that point, like there's no way he could die in a helicopter crash. Like he's got the best pilot out there. Like if he's flying his own helicopter, he's got the best pilot out there. Like somebody's mistaken. Like there's no way Kobe Bryant could be dead at this point in his life. So ultimately for me, I think more shocking, I'm going to go with the Kobe passing here as well. The PSU scandal, it definitely was shocking. I do think we got it right in terms of getting the most shocking to the finals here. But, even still now, like it just feels weird. Like we just, a couple years ago had the NBA top 75 players, and the fact that we had, Kareem there, Jordan there, but like Kobe wasn't able to be there. Like there's still aspects of that still feels weird to this day.
Well said, guys. And by the way, Penn State shouldn't win anything. So them winning most shocking sports story. And now, listen, I know that wasn't what Charlie was saying. My point being is I'm glad they lost because what ended up happening with Paterno and Sandusky and screw them, man. I just hate saying screw them to Paterno but like, man, you can't. I'm done. I gotta stop. I don't want to say anything. I'm gonna regret. So I just wanted your quick thoughts on a couple NFL takes, which is why we have that up there. Just quick thoughts on them. Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston is going to be the most entertaining quarterback room in the NFL. Your thoughts on Russell Wilson being the Giants' new starting quarterback?
I would just love. I just would love to be in a fly in the room of wherever Malik Neighbors lives, and just be like, what the hell did I do to deserve this? Like, I mean, it's just. Listen, you say it's gonna be entertaining. It's gonna be entertaining. Russ handling that New York, the New York media is gonna be interesting. And I think if we've seen anything over the last 2 years, Jameis is going to be Jameis. I don't see how it works out to be anything better than what they've really been the last couple of years. But I'm guaranteed. I think we're guaranteed to get some really good laughs and social media material out of it for sure.
For me, I mean, my biggest takeaway as soon as I saw it was, I don't know how Brian Dable hasn't handed in his keys. Like, you know what? I don't want to coach. I don't want to coach this team. Like, I'm good. Like you're throwing me out here with Russ, with who knows who are at running back. Tyrone Chasey's probably going to be their starting running back. We re-signed Darius Slayton, and Malik's great and all. Don't get me wrong there, but like, this is supposed to be my team. Like, this is what I get to go out on. We have the number 3 pick. And I know this doesn't necessarily mean that we're not taking a quarterback here, but like, I mean, all the noises, all the storylines, you're going to have Jameis being Jameis, which is, I mean, a good thing, a bad thing, and everything in between. And then you got Russ, who we saw how it worked out in Pittsburgh when, he didn't say anything crazy, but him having a guy competing with him, it just was awkward the entire time. So you figure even if we add a rookie QB to this mix, they still don't have a great line. They're still throwing to nobodies outside of Malik Neighbors. I just don't know if this is what Brian Dable signed up for after he's like, you know what? we got rid of Daniel Jones. Like, let's reset it. Like, I don't think he envisioned in his wildest dreams that the reset would be Tommy Cutlets, Jameis Winston, and Russell Wilson.
I just don't. I mean, it would be the most Giants thing in the world to probably take a quarterback in the draft now. But, I mean, I'm assuming they're hoping Travis falls now. Like, I would assume that's what they want to do, or they hope happens. Because if not, I mean, I would trade out of it and get more picks.
Makes sense to me.
I think it's hilarious to me, and as an Eagles fan, it makes me smile. I'll say that. Diggs signed a 3-year contract with the New England Patriots. ACL recovery expects to be ready by week 1. Do you think that Stephon Diggs is a good fit for the New England Patriots culture and Mike Vrabel?
Culture is going to be the biggest question mark.
Yep.
I would say no to that just because I don't know what is the right culture for Stephon Diggs. I've been pretty on record with, I'm always defending the players, and, I think ultimately a lot of them just want to win. Of course, they want the ball to go their way too, but when it's not going nowhere and they're not winning, that's when the problems arise. But I think this will be good for Drake May, because at least now he has an option to be his go-to target. Even coming off of the ACL, being on the wrong side of 30, Stephon Diggs only played like a little bit more than half a season last year, and he was more productive than every receiver on the Patriots roster. So I think it's good to bring in a guy like that. I think they still need to address it more in the draft, but the way the contract is set up, it was a big number, but only 26 guaranteed. In reality, it's a 1-year deal with like 2 opt-in years, so the Patriots can really shed it whenever they want to. So I think it was a good deal for them. I think it's one that makes a lot of sense to at least get somebody reliable in the receiver room.
I agree with all of it. There's really nothing else I could add to it. I think it at least he drops back. At least he knows he has one legitimate threat somewhere on the field to throw the football to now. They've signed a lot of players. I think New England's going to look a lot different next year. And to your culture question, I mean, Vrabel. I don't want to say Vrabel's a hard ass, but he's kind of the hard nosed, tough guy, Belichick type of guy from that tree. So
he coached AJ Brown. So
yeah. So I mean, I think I don't think Diggs will have the leeway maybe that he thinks he's going to have there.
All right, well, let's get into You Got to Be Kidding Me, gentlemen.
All right, so this week for me, something that happened basically right after we got off of the show, we have yet another.
Oh my God,
Georgia football player. Is that what you're about to?
It's right now. It's like the 19th week. I'm done. Go ahead, keep going.
We got Nitro Tuggle arrested for reckless driving. The reports came out today that he was going 107 miles per hour, 42 miles per hour over the speed limit at that time. And in case anybody was counting, it feels like every other week we have an incident. Well, I have a number for you. We have had 32, I repeat, 32 incidents coming from the University of Georgia's football team. That's including players and coaches since January of 2023. So in 2 years, staff and players, you've had 32 players arrested for some sort of driving infraction. That is absolutely insane. I hate the expression inmates running the asylum, or whatever the case may be, but Kirby, it is time for you to get a grasp of your program. The NCAA doesn't want to step in for whatever reason. I mean, they always sit on their hands with everything, but at this point, there is going to be something else that happens. We already had an incident happen where somebody lost their life. Like Jalen Carter, fell in the draft because of all of the turmoil behind it. And you're going to have something like this happen again. The numbers aren't going to always be in your favor. So for me this week, Georgia yet again dropping the ball, and Kirby Smart really not holding anybody accountable for the situation.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Well, that's not to mention, I think it was either the same night or the next night, another player drove his car like into the front of somebody's house. Like it's, bro, I like it's funny, like we're joking about it, but at the same time, like Contrell said, like you've already had people lose their lives, like people died already, and if Kirby's not going to do it, like how is the president, how is the dean of students, how is nobody at Georgia addressing it at all? Like nobody. Just Kirby can do what he wants to do.
It's baffling. It's absolutely baffling. Thank you guys for having the same, because I have one I want to share a video. You're good, right, Chow?
I was gonna say the other thing that I just want to say real quick here is that at some point, though, as a parent, when do you stop sending your kids to Georgia? Like if I see that and I have a 5-star kid, 4-star kid, whatever the case may be, I don't care how good they are at developing players. There's a chance you might not even go play in the NFL because you may die or get seriously hurt beforehand, because they are going to let you do whatever the hell you want to do with no consequences on the other side. So at what point do parents stop sending their kids to Georgia? If you want to get, there are plenty of good programs down south. You could send them to Bama. You could send them to Texas, A&M. They can get their NIL at this point anywhere in the country. They can go to any big-time program. If you have a Georgia offer, you can play anywhere. We got to figure out a way to stop it.
Mine's a little bit more lighthearted this week, but it's not lighthearted in the same respect. I don't understand how ESPN, who's such a company that's inclusive and diverse, allows stupid morons to call games and say things that, like Holly Rowe said. If you don't know what Holly Rowe said, don't worry. I have a video for you guys, and then we'll discuss. Just share this right here. And here we go.
She is cultural. She is a cultural icon here in LA. And I was at a game here last year, and I thought I was at the BET Awards. It was like every star in that community. We've seen so many people here. They just want to get a glimpse of her, and they are buying into her as their hometown hero.
I just don't. Let me just help me out understand. When do you think white Holly Rowe has been to the BET Awards? Start there. Let me follow it up by saying, what does she mean when she says that community? Just, the black community. Okay, so here, Holly, let me help you. Let me help you out here. There were so many stars here that I felt like I was at an award show. She is such a cultural icon. Period. It's not really hard to do that. Why do you look? What is Holly Rowe? It felt like I was at the BET Awards. Like I felt like she was clutching her pearls as she said the statement. You can't say things like that. And I don't know what she thinks the BET Awards looks like, because there's no way Holly Rowe has been to the BET Awards. The statement is so asinine. I don't know where she thought of thinking that was going to be a good line to say on national television. With that being said, Holly Rowe, get it together. And ESPN, let's move on.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Sad news. College women basketball players' best player, Juju Watkins, tore her ACL. So we just talked about the Juju Watkins topic, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it really put a huge damper on the women's college basketball tournament. For me, I had USC winning it all. How big of a fan I am of Juju Watkins. And not only is she going to miss this year, she's going to miss most of next year if she comes back next year. It sucks to say that, because she is probably my favorite women's basketball player in the world. So,
also on the sad note, R.I.P. George Foreman.
Oh yeah, Big George. We talked about that Monday on the show.
Grill man.
No, come on.
No,
that's not what we're going to refer to George Foreman as, right?
No, I know, but
the best grill in the country. Come on now, let's show some respect.
It's the first. Still to this day, he's probably the biggest athlete to cross over into that space and be that successful. But he was even before my time. That dude was a thumper, man. He's got wins over pretty much the who's who of the golden age of heavyweight boxing, multiple time champion. It just seemed like he's one of those guys every time he's on TV, just smiling and laughing. He seemed like a good dude. He's got like 8 sons. They're all named George. It's crazy. But definitely just a really colorful legend of the sport is gone. So that sucks.
Yeah, you're talking about a guy that people didn't think Muhammad Ali could beat in a fight. We're not going to refer to him as the grill guy. He was one of the greatest boxers ever.
I said the grill man for what it's worth.
Who's any final thought?
I said, man, good day, sir.
I said good day. I mean, of course, this week, another week, we got another breakdown. Real recognizes real. We are focusing on Kyle Kennard out of South Carolina University, and go ahead and give you a little preview of what to expect.
Hike. Middle of the field wide open. Cook. Head. Taken down. Good job keeping vision on the quarterback. All right, now.
Looking forward to it.
Another first edge guy. So guy who I've loved throughout the entire season. And I literally only reason why he's on this list because I watched a ton of South Carolina throughout the season. I was like, oh, this is a guy who stands out every time I watch.
I love that. Any final thoughts, Shao?
A little less than 12 hours away, boys. Pop of the pits and crack of the bats. Opening day tomorrow. Get ready.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, everybody in the chat. Thank you so much, everybody that participated in the Wire2Wire Sports Podcast March Madness Bracket. Appreciate everybody tuning in this week. Been another fun week. I'm the NFL Genius Gene Walzak. That's Kent State's own, Cleveland's own College Cottrell, Scholastic Shally, Uncle Shally, Surgical Shally, and we are signing out.